So, Mast Anchor 108 55% reload speed. If you're shooting fast enough, you're decreasing your ammo count. But if you're slightly slower by a little bit, you can get infinite ammo essentially. So this one is like it's kind of like pseudo. Look at it. It's kind of like pseudo infinite because it's like half reloading. It's losing some, but it's like it's gaining it back up. Yeah. Oh, red. Oh, okay. Actually, in full burst. Okay. Yeah, it's losing ammo, and then it reloads it. So the true infinite breakpoint is somewhere at 109%. Actually, Altos has been doing some breakdown on charge speed on this because there's like some weird shift up rounding thing, and he's been breaking down Scarlet Black Shadow. Kind of be on the lookout for that. I will post some thing about Scarlet Black Shadow. But I mean, at the end of the day, so this is the level 10 Anchor skill 2 and level 7 Mast skill 2, right? It's basically almost infinite. And I feel like if we want to try to save some resources, I think that's probably like good enough. Basically, you need to push reload time far enough into negative that you charge in negative 11 frames at 60 FPS. But there's a rounding that makes it so there is no hard breakpoint number. You have to factor in the rounding that happens with time-related buffs. The time-related buffs are additive to each other. So if we have some little bit of extra reload speed somewhere, it's probably gonna allow us to have enough reload. I guess if we want like true infinite ammo, maybe just get Mast to level 8 then, right? Maybe like level 7 is enough for a lot of people who want to save some resources, but maybe level 8 is probably like if we really want like real true infinite ammo then. But I think like for a lot of people, I think the level 10 Anchor and level 7 Mast is probably like more than enough. If you do the other way around with Mast level 10 and Anchor level 7, you get maybe Mast, maybe we could try that. If Mast Anchor is just gonna be a side grade, then for a lot of people it's not gonna be worth, but it would be worth for people that are competitive in like solo raids. Side grade for a crown team sounds good because I can tell you there in almost a lot of the situations we have put Alice and SBS in the crown team aside from the electric one. Alice and SBS has been in the crown team ever since Crown. I can even double check here. Indivilia. Okay, so since Indivilia, right, this is when Crown is. Okay, let's see. Let's just pull the logs. We literally have the info here. And we're gonna check the top rankers. Crown, Alice, SBS. Season 13, Indivilia. Season 14, Gravedigger. Crown, Alice, SBS. Season 15, Kraken. Crown, Alice, SBS. Season 16, Mirror Container. Okay, this one, Electric. I think Electric, that's when Alice and SBS like moves out, I think. Yeah. Massive Object. This is Fire Advantage. Crown, Alice, SBS. Bland Eater. Crown, Alice, SBS. Full 19. Oh, actually, this one's Electric. The Crown team is not gonna have... yeah, this one's not gonna have the Crown Alice SBS. Crown got the other infinite ammo setup, which is with Summer Anise and Ein now. The 1920 is also White Dragon, so that one is also not Crown Alice SBS also. But for Behemoth, it was Mari Alice SBS, Ice White Dragon. Yeah, so it was Mari Alice SBS with Ludmilla. And then for Modernia, it's Crown Alice SBS. So in pretty much every single time ever since Indivilia, which is when Crown came out, it has been Crown Alice SBS combination. And then the last one is typically just a flex unit. It could be Privaty, it could be Helm, it could be Privaty, it could be... Oh, this one's not. That one's electric. Privaty, it is Privaty. Oh, this is electric. Right. So basically, the Alice-SBS combo has been with Crown, Alice, SBS, and Privaty this whole time, aside from electric advantage. Our goal here is to just confirm if Alice-SBS combination, it's like a side grade with Crown, with Privaty. If we can do that, then that means that the anchor mast is something that's really good, because what that's gonna allow us is it's gonna allow us to move units around and free up Crown with a much more like elemental advantage team. This could be for water, it can fit for fire also, technically. However, maybe for fire you might want Alice to be in the Crown team. Who knows? We'll have, it depends on the boss, right? But it can be for water, it can be for iron, because if you need iron, then you're just gonna use litter. Fire, wind, water, basically 4 out of the 5 elements. Mast and anchor combination alongside with Alice and SBS is seemingly possible. Will mana break Alice out of that eventually? That's true. So in wind advantage, technically mana could be with SBS, right? And that will remove Alice out. However, if we put mana in, we're gonna not use the duos. See, the thing is, like, mana took SBS away from Alice, but these duos just got Alice back again. What's gonna happen is, if you have mana and SBS, and then if you use the duo, it's not gonna work properly because mana will buff anchor instead. Yeah, duo seems to be more flexible, assuming that the Alice-SBS team is still gonna be the core. For a good while, I have a feeling that that's what's gonna happen. Mainly just because a lot of people have invested heavily on Alice and SBS, so we're gonna see that happening. Freeing Crown for other teams makes them worth it for me. Yeah, that's our main goal, is to see if they are worthy of comparison with the Crown-Privaty comps and other teams also. The way I see this is it's gonna be Solar Raid oriented. I don't know though if it's gonna be like single team, because like single team, like if you have Crown, just use Crown, right? Like that's still the GGs, right? That's our testing. Let's see what's gonna happen. The Mast and Anchor, there is a lot of benefit for getting duplicates of them, mainly because their multipliers for casters attack is like high. This is me telling the whale so that they will whale and like use up a lot of their money. Yeah, it's right before collab, telling them to start whaling. Hey, shift up, where's my can I get like a percentage of people that spent, please? Thanks. Oh yeah, this is one way to make volume very relevant too, huh? Wait a minute. Oh my god, wait a minute. Because technically people would prefer the killer wife over volume as a buffer, right? Typically volume goes to the team 5. Technically volume would end up being better with the Mast and Anchor. Yo, crit meta? Oh my god, no. Kira's testing. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like I said, with core, Naga would still be better. Naga, but the fact that it's close. It's close under the premise that it's core 7. So you're talking about similar investment with Crown. Because like Naga doesn't need a lot of investments. She's not providing that much crazy damage, right? So a lot of this is carried by Naga's core damage buff plus like healing Crown, which is the main thing. But then you were talking about Crown on the similar investment as Mast and Anchor. This both core 7. So this is with core, which again, like I said, it makes sense. I do think that, yeah, obviously given that there is no core, I do believe that they would outdamage that. Yeah, this is with core. With no core, I think they would be better. And here's the thing though. If we actually go look back at these solar raids, a lot of them don't actually have that much core visibility. If we look at these bosses in terms of core, let's start with Indivilia. Indivilia had the core that it lasts for like 2 seconds. Gravedigger has a core but only on Pierce on phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3, that's when the core becomes visible for SBS to shoot at, but Alice is the only one that can hit the core from phase 1 and phase 2 because of the pierce. Like, the core is hidden. Golden Kraken does have visible core on phase 2. On phase 1, it's only hittable by Alice. Although the small tentacles were there, it's not like 100% uptime, like the front tentacles. So not a full core uptime. Mirror Container had a core, but then we can destroy it, and then sometimes like it's not up, I think. There were times where it wasn't up, there were times that it was up. Massive Object, the core just gets destroyed pretty like fast also. Land Eater also has a very small uptime on core. Behemoth had no core. White Ice Dragon did have core. That one is the main one that had a lot of uptime. Modernia didn't have a lot of uptime on the core also. For a lot of the situations, the core doesn't have like a huge high uptime. Here's Konto's testings also. Alright, so this was Kira's testing on shooting range, right, with core in it, and this was with Naga, but then he used litter here, right? This is Konto's testing using volume and Scarlet Black Shadow instead, so he used volume instead of litter. And this is not as big of an investment. It's a 7, 8, 10 mast with 7, 10, 10 anchor. So it was this one. This is on wind weak, so that's why you see bajillion damage from Scarlet Black Shadow. So he did 11.5 and Scarlet Black Shadow did 8.2. And then with Privaty right here, so in the same units he used volume and then Crown and Privaty. So this is the infinite ammo. This has 11.2, so it did less damage than the Mast and Anchor. Scarlet Black Shadow did only 6.8, and there is a lot more damage for Alice, which makes sense because Mast and Anchor are buffing SBS a lot more, right? So it kind of makes sense. The thing is also another is it's very volume centric, right? As for the burst one, there is a more synergy with volume, Mast, and Anchor as opposed to volume, Crown, and Privaty. It does same thing, but I think for a lot of people it would benefit them with the Mast and Anchor more, because this one has a lot more carrying SBS, and you know, unless you have like really good Alice gaming skills, there's gonna be a bigger discrepancy, right? And you're not gonna be able to take advantage of Crown and Privaty for the infinite ammo as much. Definitely a way better SBS investment, and it makes SBS shine a lot more, right? The good thing about it also is, so this is with core, but we're not using Naga, but it's a Privaty and Crown versus like Mast and Anchor. And the Mast and Anchor is better. Now, here's another thing. Yeah, his Mast and Anchor is only at 270k combat power, and I believe the Crown is at 330k, 340k. Yeah, in terms of dupes, I believe he only has MLB on these instead of core 7. He has a core 7 Crown. So if it's an even situation where they probably have similar dupes, the Mast and Anchor should be better also. Yeah, because like we're gonna use Naga with Tia, right? Or well, we're not guaranteed, but if it's a boss that doesn't have a lot of like core, then it's likely that we're gonna use Privaty Crown. And I think that Mast and Anchor would end up being better on the non-core. And here's the water weak. So this is neutral. He tested on the water weak also. And this is with core. So in this situation, SBS is not getting a lot of elemental bonus, right? So she's not getting that higher multiplier. So in this situation, we only did 7.1 with the Mast and Anchor with volume, but it did 7.6 with Crown and Privaty. But you can see here that obviously because in the Mast and Privaty, Alice is pulling more weight and she's more neutral, and so you're getting this. But again, keep in mind that his Mast and Anchor are lesser investment compared to his Crown. So maybe he's saying here that obviously Scarlet Back Shadow isn't getting a big elemental bonus. Crown and Privaty is pulling ahead, although with even investments, it's probably around the same. So it would be seemingly to be a side grade in some situations for some accounts. And maybe for some people, it might pull ahead. By it, I mean Mast and Anchor might pull ahead for some accounts over the Crown and Privaty. And the thing is, remember what I said also in the previous solar raids, we have been using Crown and Privaty in almost every single element aside from electric advantage. But however, ever since then, we've had a lot of units more, right? To be fair. So if we're just talking about the previous solar raids and Mast and Anchor existed, there is a pretty good chance that we have used Mast and Anchor. We're not gonna be able to predict what's in the future, right? So assuming that combo, then we can use Mast and Anchor. Yeah, there's like treasure helm. There's gonna be a lot more things, the different combos that we're probably gonna be using, like crown and treasure helm. So it's not even, we're not even gonna use Privaty anymore probably, right? There's a lot more DPSs that's coming up, but then even then, I guess you could put those DPSs into the crown team instead, and we're gonna keep the Mast and Anchor with the Scarlet Back Shadow and Alice. The issue is just we just don't know what's in the future. But at the very least, from what it seems like, specifically because right now, and I've already explained this before in the previous like half mast video, the main one that's taking advantage of Mast and Anchor is the SBS team. The other distributed damage is not really gonna make like a huge difference, but for SBS, it's like a huge difference. So if there is somehow like a really good DPS like later down the road with distributed damage, the Mast and Anchor would end up being a consideration. The idea again that we're saying here is if it's a side grade, then it is a good consideration in terms of team building, because what this allows us to do is to free up the crown team, and likely Helm is, we're gonna use Helm. It's gonna free up the crown and Helm team for other DPSs that's probably more on element. And it's already showing that it is seemingly to be like a side grade in some, maybe a slight upgrade or a slight downgrade. This is water weak. How much elemental does your Helm has? Okay, so water weak, Mast Anchor, OL is 000 plus zeros and then 777. Helm is level 5 skill 1, level 10 skill 2. And your Helm has 45 elemental damage. Okay. So, and it's treasured. Yeah, so, which is why we want the Crown Helm combo. But in this situation, this is water weak. Yeah, the Crown Helm is coming out on top. Well, partly there's some damage from Helm, right? But then you could argue the same for Mast and Anchor too. But the main thing though is, I guess Crown is doing a decent amount of damage also. She's 400 and then Helm is 800. And then Mast is 300 and Anchor is 162. So the reason why the Crown and Helm is taking over is not only the buff, because she does buff SBS and Alice more. Helm, pretty good amount of damage, it's 800. So I think the reason why, for a lot of people, I do think that the Crown Helm will still come out on top. But the question is that the team that we're gonna use with Alice-SBS, right? When you can technically just put in Mast and Anchor with it, and then what's the opportunity cost here if you decide to just use other water element DPS with Crown, right? So put in Quency here or something, right? That is something to consider, but this is one example of instance where the Mast and Anchor is not really gonna pay off really well if Mast and Anchor are not properly overloaded. So I feel like this will be a side grade or high upgrade if, and the way I say this is if the Mast and Anchor are relatively invested also. Because technically, since it's water advantage, the Mast and Anchor can make up for their damage, right? there's also gonna be elemental advantages for them that's gonna help out, but it's not as much as what Helm is providing. Although your Helm does have, yeah, she does have treasure. Yeah, so she is a little bit more invested compared to your Mast and Anchor, who are just, you just overloaded them just for the sake of just stats, right? I don't think you min-max the element and like the stats for them. Yeah, so this is might be what's gonna be more similar for a lot of people that don't have like good investments, right? And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of investments. Yeah, this is one thing how I could see it could be a dissuasion for a lot of people, because the question is now, do you have enough resources to upgrade them, right? And there's gonna be collab coming up soon, and then half anniversary soon after that also. So maybe the Helm and Crown could end up still being in the Alice Scar Black Shadow for a good number of people. The ones that we showed earlier with the max core, Mast and Anchor, and then also actually the one that Konto had was max limit broken Mast and Anchor and core 7 Crown, where there's these situations where Mast and Anchor is like lower or slightly even than the Crown team. But I think that's one thing that we have to heavily consider. This is by no means like the duo is gonna be cheap in the short term for a lot of people. It's gonna be very expensive. In the long term, I could see it, but then if we're talking about long term, there's gonna be so much more possible other units that we might end up spending. So I guess this is one reason or how Mast and Anchor might not be a good option for some people. If you're not ready to invest a lot, then you're not gonna see as bigger dividends as, say, if you put it on the other teams, right? Dolls, lots of resources, skills, it's gonna be very expensive. That's true. We still don't have the water Pilgrim tier DPS. We need the water DPS that is in the same level as Scarlet, Black Shadow, Rapi, Red Hood, and Cinderella. And that's the power scaling that we're jumping into now. Before, the power scaling was like in Modernia, but then ever since Scarlet Black Shadow, the next tier of Pilgrim power scaling is the Scarlet Black Shadow with Alice, and then Cinderella, and then Rapi Red Hood. So we still don't have the water. For Iron, Red Hood technically can get to their level if there's pierce opportunities. And also, I guess Rapi Red Hood is Iron also, so I guess there's that too. Rapi Red Hood is both fire and iron. So we have that fire and iron already Pilgrim tier level. So we're just missing that water. If we want to bank in like a top tier water, a distributed water damage sounds really good right now. Water has been infested with distributed damage though. So for each stack type, there's like 2 elements that heavy benefactors from them. 2 irons, true damage and pierce. Electric is true damage and HP. And then you have sustained damage, wind, water, distributed damage, wind, water. Ignore 2B. I know like you have 2B HP, but I feel like 2B is a one-off right now. Fire's missing a second. Okay, fine. Let's put tier 2B. So just for pity. Fire, there. So that we got the pity 2B right there. Because who else is in fire that's HP? You cannot, for the love of me, tell that it's freaking 2B. Yeah, it's literally 2B. Like, you can't say that. And yeah, by this point, you just write down the distributed damage 2B also, right here. And Trony. Yeah, but then, like, yeah, nobody would build them like that, right? Technically, like if we're gonna be very specific, there's the L-egg also for distributed damage. But again, are we using it? Fire shield damage? Yeah, but then shield is like such a gimmick. Like, shield damage is such a gimmick. Just do enough damage and that shield doesn't matter. What you're saying is 2B's NSS, she's in every category. She's not in sustained or pierce, nor true damage. You can't say that. Where's shield damage even relevant? Next question, please. Parts damage. Okay, yeah, technically there is parts damage, but the thing is Dorothy's more support. Parts damage is more of a support thing, and it's a buff. It's not for the DPS. Guy, you forgot the wind focuses AoE attacks, Epinal uses that. I'm freaking done with you guys. I'm done. Shut up. What about emotional damage? I don't know. Shut up. Did Anchor make Mass good? With the current units out right now, they are solar raid viable. So yes, but we don't know the future. That's the yes, but. Yes, they are good. It's not as straightforward like, say, Rapi Red Hood, right? Or Cinderella, where we can say like, oh yeah, they're really strong. Remember Rem to Crown incident? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm a little bit worried about, right? Rem at the time was actually a pretty decent, like actually good unit. However, Crown came out. It just power crept Rem and completely replaced Rem. Supports too dependent on available DPS, yeah. So the biggest thing about them is they're dependent on the future distributed damage DPSs. Because keep in mind, they're eating up the spot of attack damage or damage taken the damage taken increase, meaning like Blanc or Rosanna, and then attack damage increase, which is like Grave, Mari, and technically like the Tia plus Naga. So the burst 2 position is fairly demanding. The thing is, based on the solar raid history, we have historically used Crown-Privaty, Scarlet, Backshadow, and Alice on all elements except for electric advantage. With the duos, we're gonna be able to split them off away for the other elements. I don't know about fire though. There is a good chance that they might still go with Crown and Alice, and then maybe we have other fire teams in the future, right? But for the other ones, at the very least with the units out right now, it feels like it can make sense for wind advantage to use SBS with Alice and the duos. And then for iron advantage, you can just use litter to fill in that iron. And then for water, you have the duos. Now the wind one is also iffy, mainly because there's mana. It is possible if we get a better burst 2 that mana and SBS would be together instead. So it depends if we get like other better use than the duos. To be fair, Shift Up seems like they released the supports before the DPS relevance, because DPS is where you want duplicates, or where people like start screaming, oh, you should get duplicates of these, right? Typically. And again, we're still missing that water pilgrim. So there is a very, very slight chance that that water pilgrim is distributed damage. TLDR, can I put them on wishlist? I have most of the buffer. Shit's gonna be expensive because it seems like it's a side grade. It will start opening up Crown Team for other solo raids. It can start opening up Crown Team. But the thing is, that was also before Helm got treasure. And so the Mast Anchor did come out, if assuming that the investments are even, they did come out ahead of the Crown-Privaty, assuming that SBS was like the major contributor of the DPS. But because of Helm, the Crown-Helm combination now ends up being a much better option for a lot of people. So then the Crown-Helm takes them back again. So that's one thing. What we're hoping for with the Mast Anchor is to have other DPS again that will make them more viable, because distributed damage is a very niche damage right now. It's not a very generic damage. For a lot of people, it's gonna be a very expensive thing. The main ones I can see that can benefit from them are whales that have a lot of resources. But for me, just thinking about it, like I just don't have enough resources for my free-to-play units. So yes, they're nice, they're niche, but it's gonna be expensive, and they will open up different team buildings. But the thing is, right now we're only just looking at it in the perspective of Scarlet, Black Shadow, and Alice, because they're the main benefactor of this setup. In the future, there is a possibility that there is a better, stronger distributed damage unit, and that's what we're coping for. Lower level people, I have a hard time like thinking about it. It's gonna be a side grade, but it's not like it's completely, oh, you don't have any other options for other team building, because we have been able to slap in Scarlet, Black Shadow, and Alice to different teams this whole time. And personally, I feel like with the collab upcoming soon and half anniversary upcoming soon, this is a very expensive resource investment. Since they can be wishlistable, I think at best maybe get like one copy of each, but you can also just like wishlist them. And if you're a whale, you're not really gonna ask me whether you should get duplicates or not. I mean, technically, yeah. If you're a whale, like, you know, top 50 trying to outdo other people, yeah, it will open up your team building, but good luck with the resources. By the way, did you know that 56% of you still hasn't subscribed yet? Make sure to click that subscribe button, click that bell notification, leave a comment, like, and subscribe.